Okay, good morning and welcome to Leicestershire and Rutland Safer Community Strategy Board. First item is the minutes of the previous meeting on pages 3 to 12. So we'll just run through them with accuracy. Page 3 is just the attendees. Anything from page 4? Page 5? Page 6? Page 7? Page 8? Page 9? Page 10? And page 11 is just the dates of the future meetings. Everyone happy with the accuracy of the minutes?
Yeah.
Any matters arising for the minutes that are not covered elsewhere? Okay, we'll go on to the action log now, pages 13 to 14. I didn't pick anything up that we need to pick up that isn't already covered or in process of being covered. The only one I will say is number 3 on there. Bob Bean was on the agenda for today, but unfortunately he's been called away to another meeting and there's no one to deputise for him. So item 8 on our agenda today will have to be postponed. So we'll bring that to the next meeting. Anything else from the action log that we need to pick up? No? Okay. Any declarations of interest from anybody? No? Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 6, which Office of the Police and Crime Commissioners update. So, Saj, I see you on here.
I am. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, over to you.
This is quite a short report. Would it be okay to take it as read and I can focus on any questions you might have?
Yeah, that's fine. There's nothing you want to highlight at all.
No, I think most of the stuff is covered on there. I think the progress with Safer Street being the main thing that I think is probably of note, but that seems to be progressing fine. We opened the CSF round, which had about 88 applications, and it's basically bogged down the commissioning team. It's more than we've ever had. So
okay,
I think that's the other thing. But if there's any other questions anyone else has, I can try and hopefully answer them or take them back if needed.
Are you able to, with those applications, because I did pick up before that they were quite, some of the funding was quite centred in the city or a couple of the districts. So do you know if those applications are from across?
Yes. Yeah, I did the due diligence for them, so I was supporting the team in that. So it's wide and far. It's effectively across all of LLR.
Okay, that's really good.
We do have quite a few like county-related ones as well.
Oh, that's good. Good. Okay, is there any questions on this report from anybody? No? Okay, thanks very much for that then, Saj. We'll move on to item 7, the anti-social behaviour system. So Gerja, I think you're going to take us through this and update on the system.
Yep, so members will recall the business case that was presented a few meetings ago to move systems to a new ASB case management system. Work is underway. We've now recruited a consultant called Sarita Adams, who has supported other county local authorities, including Derbyshire, to procure similar systems in the past. The preferred system is on G Cloud, so this should make procuring the new system a lot easier and more straightforward. So G Cloud is an IT procurement cloud-based system, which it's all new to me, but it's all very interesting. So that's all going through really nicely. So you'll recall that Leicestershire County Council are leading the procurement of the new system because that was the partnership's preference. So I'm having lots of meetings internally with procurement, with legal. So we're drawing up a partnership agreement to ensure that everybody's clear on what will be happening going forward. We've got lots of different project groups, operational and strategic, to work through the needs of the partners. So this is going to be an LLR system, Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, local authorities and the police. When we were looking at the timescales, the Home Office are funding the first year of the system and the establishment and the move across, and that funding's got to be utilised by the 31st of March. So we were given some options around the system of it being a local system or a national system, and we've with the partners agreed that it will be a national system, and this is mainly because when we presented the business case, that was one of the reasons to procure a new system, particularly when we're looking at managing things like county lines. And I think as we move forward, whilst in the short term it is going to be more difficult, particularly around the training and getting people up to speed with this new system, I think if we're looking strategically into the future, it's going to be more beneficial for us to be part of a national system that is used across most local authorities and police forces across the country when we're supporting particularly young people, as I say, around county lines. So the plan is to, as I say, procure hopefully November time to have the new system in place by the 1st of April. And I think that's about all I wanted to say about it. I don't know if anybody else on the call, officers, would like to add anything, but it is all systems going. It's a very large, complex project, and I shall update you at the next meeting of how it's going. We should be far further forward. At the moment, it's the planning and getting things in place ready to procure it.
Thanks, Gurjit. Are all the cases that are Sentinel going to be passed over to the new? Are you going to run the two systems together?
So we're looking at our RRD, which is retain, refer and delete policy at the minute. So legally, in terms of GDPR, we're not to keep any cases over 6 years old. But we do have the review process. So what was the old community trigger process? So what we've agreed locally is across the partnership, we will delete over 6 years, but where it's an ongoing case, we will keep over the last year's data. So that will all migrate to the new system. Ideally, you're right, if we can run two systems for a couple of months, that would be great. But if the new system isn't the current system, which I know sounds silly, but they can come forward and put in a procurement application if they would like to. The current contract states that the outgoing provider can give 60 days notice. So in terms of the timeliness, we're just working through all that. So we've got a risk register and we're mitigating those. Okay,
I suppose that is the concern, isn't it? That people that I've got ongoing cases that they kind of get a bit lost in a transfer over. So is this system a lot easier to use? Because I know there was an issue with Sentinel, wasn't it, about users, how difficult it was to use. So it's and it's easier for everyone.
I mean, I'm personally not a user, so I'm dependent on partners and other officers advising. It is supposed to be a lot easier, and as I say, it's the most used system across the country. We have got in Melton Borough Council already use the system, and they have a super user at Melton, and Melton have kindly offered some really great support through that officer. Other officers will be prioritised in terms of that training up, so then we can roll that out across LLR.
Okay, brilliant. That's good. We've got someone that's a super user. Okay, Les.
Yeah, it's just a question, Gurjit. So, oh gosh, I don't know. 2-3 years ago, we had a big meeting at Force HQ, CSP conference thing. And one of the points that was raised about Sentinel at that point was going to be upgraded was the ability to trace, to the ability for the system to automatically alert officers if, you know, it's the same person, it's the same area. Is that all being still captured in this new system?
Yeah, so as I say, we've got we've got a couple of project groups. So we've got officers across the partnership who currently use Sentinel. We've done lots of work over the last couple of years of where Sentinel, where the shortfalls are and what a perfect system would look like. So we've already got all that information, and then we've got project groups to make sure that this system will provide everything that the partnership want. So things like that. We might not get it all immediately because of the time frames we're working to and the Home Office funding. But yes, it's all registered, it's all noted, and yes, we're working towards an ideal system.
Sorry, can everyone just mute? Sorry, thank you. Well, I was muting myself while I was trying to speak. Okay, is there any other questions for Gurjit on this? Are you likely to come back at the next meeting to give us a further update about where you are? So you should be cured by then, should you?
Yeah, so by the next meeting, I'll bring a presentation or something as to where we're at, because I think we'll be, as I say, much further forward and really in the depths of the actual procurement and what we're doing around the training, etc. So yes, I will. Okay,
brilliant. Thanks, Gurjit. Any other questions on this? Okay, as I said, item 8, we've got no one here to present to us, and we have got the slides there, and I'm sure Bob, we can feed any questions to him. I don't know if there's any specific questions that anyone wants to say now that we can send to Bob. I know this is quite, I don't know what the right word is, but a hot topic quite isn't the word, is it? But there's a lot in the press about this and the offenders that have been released that shouldn't have. So I suppose it is quite concerning for us, and I was a little bit disappointed we've got no one to present to us today, but it is what it is. So we can always feed some questions back. Christine.
I think one of the unfortunate things for the probation service is the fact that this probation reset, which we might have had some concerns about, is also hit by the early release system. Now, both will have issues. Put the two together and I fear the press are spotting a perfect storm. And I think it's really sad, because I think it stops us sensibly evaluating either of the happenings, as it were. So it's not really anything to feed back, it's just an observation.
Yeah, I think when Bob came last time, he was very honest with us about what was happening, wasn't it? And I think you're right, the two things are getting merged into one, and they're two separate things, aren't they? But you can understand public concern over this, and I'm certainly concerned over this and the impact it has on communities. So if there is anything that you want to ask outside the meeting, if you just feed them to you and we can feed them back to Bob. But I'm sure he'll be at the next meeting for us to give us an update. And there is another cohort of early releases as well in October, so hopefully we can have an update on that. So we'll leave that for now, but if there is anything, please send it on to you and then we can forward it on to Bob. Okay, we'll move on to item 9, the Safer Rutland Partnership Strategy Board. Christine, I think you're presenting this report, pages 25 to 28.
I'm starting the presentation, but in the interest of demonstrating we work in partnership, one of our partners will be joining. I don't intend going through the report item by item. I'm doing that dangerous thing of assuming everybody can read. The board has reviewed its terms of reference and strategy this year in light of joining this board and taking on some additional roles. It is worth noting that our board isn't a public meeting, it is a closed meeting. The strategy is very different to the previous one. I like to think it's less stodgy, but I couldn't include it here as it needs to go back for final agreement. Throughout, the ideal of partnership is reflected, and one of the appendices is the main priorities of our 5 core services, so they're actually written in as part of the strategy. So it's about helping them achieve their priorities as them working towards ours. And I think that partnership work, and there was some concern raised about the military police becoming involved in misbehaviour in Oakham. I think that's just a very good example of partnership working, that the military police like to know about misbehaviour at a much lower level than you would normally involve the police. And it was recognition of that that led us to bring them into the situation. I can share that our 5 priorities for this quarter, they're assessed each quarter against data. I don't know how much they'll change, are road safety, protecting the vulnerable, serious organised crime and substance abuse, serious violence, and domestic violence and abuse. There was much discussion at the meeting about the fact there aren't numbers attached to these. None of these is any more important than any other. If you went out into a lot of our parish councils, because of the speeding issues, road safety would be their number 1. But that is because much of the rest is, of course, isn't seen. So they're not aware that there is a need for them to be there. One issue I did raise in the report is the lack of a dedicated beat officer in Oakham. Our police, as I think most Leicestershire police, work on a very networky basis, local intelligence picked up from the odd visit and so on. So it's quite a severe blow to us. We are assured that they will be replaced soon, but we don't have a date. And I'm a little bit concerned about how long somebody else's soon is. So that still remains a concern for us. Much as in these meetings, our meetings consist of regular feedback from our core contributors, and people bring things to the board. I took to the board the promotion reset last time as a result of this meeting. So I think there's a good two-way piece of work going on there. Angie Bishop, who spoke in the earlier meetings, is going to do a few slides to show how they fit within our structure. Angie.
I had it all ready to go, and then it disappeared from the screen. Okay, I will share the presentation. Now, it is a very short presentation, just to cover the work that's been happening around domestic abuse in Rutland and our priorities moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Yep, we've got it on screen. Yep. Okay,
right. Let's go through. So I think it'd be helpful just to share the governance arrangements that we have in place in Rutland. So that we have the highest level is the Safer Rutland Partnership. That is a quarterly board that's chaired by Councillor Wise. Sitting beneath that is the Domestic Abuse Partnership Board, which I chair, and then the Service Manager, Sarah Gill, chairs the Domestic Abuse Working Group. And Sarah and I both sit within the Children's Services Directorate in Rutland, and the Domestic Abuse services sit within Children's Services, but we work obviously very closely with our community safety partners, and there's lots of joined up working across those services. So this in this slide here gives you a bit of an overview of what each of the boards and the group do. There's been a lot of work happening in Rutland, and we've had 3 lots of training recently available to across the partnership. So we had the Clare's Law briefing provided by the police, which was really well received and really informative. and feedback from that was exceptionally positive from across the partnership. We had a Jenkins project briefing, and we've had a DASH risk assessment training as well for our colleagues in children's services and across Rutland. Our media channels are something that we're focusing on in terms of really promoting the message regarding domestic abuse, thinking about signs for people to look out for, and accompanying that with what to do if you are worried. Because we could do a lot of work around these are the signs, recognise this, what can you do? But actually, if people don't know where to go, where people can get help, then it won't be accessed. As for our next steps, and there's a real positive, and we did speak about this in the last board meeting sort of half an hour ago. We're working with partners to develop strategies around elder abuse. I think this is reflective of Rutland's demographic and our communities, and recognition of this being a potential real high level concern for Rutland, as I say, given the population demographic. And linked in with that is our connection with the Cut It Out campaign. We've had contact with a large number of salons, beauty salons, hair salons, barbers shops, and it's been really positively received, because these are people who quite often the only opportunity some people will get to share what's happening in their personal lives at home is when they're sat in the hairdresser's chair. It's potentially a safe space for people to be able to share what's happening, alongside those people working in those settings being able to identify signs. For example, an older person potentially. We've had a retired person who was seen to become very anxious when the husband was coming to pick them up from the salon, very worried. He was getting quite angry outside and beeping the horn. But it was certainly the person in the salon felt that this wasn't just a frustrated husband who thought his wife's hair had taken too long. This was more than that, and it was again supporting people to know what they can do, how they can support their clients who are coming into the salons, and what they can do to ensure that people are receiving the support and know what to do to get the help that they might need. So a lot of work happening across both children's services with our domestic abuse lead, and with Hugh Crouch in community safety, and it's a joined up piece of work. We're updating our needs assessment that is about to commence. So that is our strategic needs assessment focused on housing for victims of domestic abuse. That will hopefully be completed by the end of November. And so this is again, it kind of follows on really as I've just talked through the next steps. We're waiting to find out about national funding, as are all local authorities, and we can't forward plan as far as we would like to at the moment until we understand what if any grant allocation there will be to Rutland. But just to say, we have some really positive things happening in Rutland at the moment, and really raising that awareness.
Thank you both. Yeah, and as we said in that previous meeting, I'm really interested in that Cut It Out campaign and how that goes forward, and also the elder abuse, which I don't think gets talked about that much. So I think the learning you get from both of that pieces of work would be really useful for all partners to bring back to us at some point about how it's going. So
absolutely. Yeah, and I've added some links in the last slide, and the slides will be sent round by you and following the meeting today to everybody. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments on that report? No, and I know you're still fairly new to the board, but there's some really good stuff coming from your reports now. You're up to speed, so thank you for that as well. Okay, on to item 10, Leicestershire Police Service update. Chief Inspector Michelle. Oh, there you are. Okay, over to you.
Yes, good morning. I'm actually standing in for Chief Superintendent Starbuck, so I probably won't be as eloquent as he usually is, but maybe I'll be better. I'm just going to go through an update and focus on a few points, and then hopefully there'll be some questions maybe at the end. So I think if we look at some of the challenges that we've had this year to date, the obvious one will be the financial challenge, which I'm sure everybody's aware of, and the mitigations that we're putting in place to ensure that the numbers that we've managed to balance see us to continue with our efficiencies. We've had real focus around costs in relation to our officer overtime, operational kit, and our vacancy management. I know Councillor Wise has already discussed a vacancy at Oakham, so we're very focused on filling those vacancies. And one thing that's seen a real uplift, which I don't think anybody at this meeting today will be surprised about, will be the cost in relation to the seizing of dangerous dogs and the XL bullies. The cost associated with that has literally skyrocketed since the start of the year with the legislation that's come into play. There have been times when we've had over 50 dogs that have been in kennels that have been seized by the police. Obviously, we have a daily rate and then their vet bills and the investigations that follow on from them. And sadly, we get sometimes into a bit of bottleneck waiting for court dates, which just sees spiralling costs. But obviously, the risks associated with not doing so are clear, and we see those in the press. So our workforce as well, we've still got quite an inexperienced workforce. There's been a number of years where we've been recruiting quite heavily, so we're really focusing on our new team Leicestershire Academy, where we have got ongoing development of all our officers before they're out on area, and they also get direct contact from the leadership team, so from superintendent and above, so they fully understand the importance of victim care, which is one of the other areas I want to touch on as well, around the work that we do in our improved victim service. So I know Councillor Phillimore mentioned earlier about repeat victims in relation to ASB systems. So we do something very similar where we pick up repeat victims of crime and make sure they get an enhanced level of service. And that also links in with our approach to anything that's recorded as a hate crime. So we have the officers embedded to ensure that we're very much aware of repeat victims and those victims of hate crime. I guess also the next thing I want to mention is the complexities of our demand as we move forward. So with intelligence changing, online criminality, and the change in the way that criminals work. We talk about county lines now as if it's been around for years, but it's actually quite new, and they also develop in the ways that they sort of carry out their criminal behaviour. So we've got lots of challenges in relation to sort of telephone work and digital investigations, and all of these things take up more time than some of your traditional criminal offences. So we're working hard to ensure that our teams, both locally and within our CID, are upskilled so that we can actually tackle those investigations to try and bring those offenders to justice. You will all have seen the news in relation to the disorders that we've seen. And that caused, I think, every police force some challenge as well, especially in other forces, less so than Leicestershire. But within that time, we did have to stand up our officers to work additional hours to prevent any disorder. Thankfully, we didn't see some of the scenes that were seen in other forces across the country. The July fortnight is a challenge for us every year because it's where we see most of our people on annual leave, and we see an increase in crime reporting and antisocial behaviour with the holiday season. So we ran something called Operation Solstice this year, which saw some of our specialist teams that you might not necessarily think about responding to jobs, actually assisting those frontline officers. And then I guess one other thing I should probably mention is that we've had Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabularies within force nearly all of this year since January, but with a very focused fieldwork approach where they're in every day, and that was the July fortnight. So we're awaiting that full report, but we are cautiously optimistic. But until that report lands, we will sort of never know what they say. So that's a bit of an update around some of the challenges and some of the ongoing work. But please ask any questions, and if I can, I will answer.
Thank you, Michelle. Just about the XL bully dogs, is there not a potential to recharge that back to the owners, the costs of
Yes,
seizing them?
if only it was that simple.
Yeah, I know, it's very easy to say,
I know.
yeah.
Yes, we apply for the costs whenever we go to court. Just as an example, we have had some dogs that have been in nearly a year now, so there are some backlogs with the courts with some priorities over sort of domestic abuse cases, which I fully appreciate and understand. Our last few cases that have gone to court with applications to get the costs back, because the owner couldn't afford it, they've not been granted, so we've had to pay the costs.
Okay, but there is that opportunity to do that. That's at least there's an
Yes, we
opportunity.
do. Yeah, no, we put that billing and we put that application in with everything that goes through the courts. We are also looking at some civil powers, but what we need there is for the owner to disclaim the dog. Sadly, you will all understand that that does result in a dog being put to sleep, and it is contentious, but it's a dangerous dog. But a lot of people refuse to sign that paperwork, so we then have to wait a number of months for the court processes to go through.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Christine.
Mine wasn't actually a question. It's more just to thank you for. You said you weren't sure it would be as good. I thought that was a very good feedback report. Very well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Just another one for me is that I asked the Police and Crime Commissioner at the Police and Crime panel about this, about the right place, right person. I might have got that the wrong way round, and the reduction in incidents being reported due to mental health being passed to other partners. So have you noticed any difference in that going forward in man hours or the incidents that the police are responding to?
That work is still ongoing, and no, you did have it right, and we often refer to it within policing as the most appropriate agency, because obviously we sometimes feel that we're not best place, and it is, that work is ongoing, and yes, there has been an improvement. Unfortunately, I don't have the data to hand, but I'm sure that would become available for you. I just don't know the numbers myself, sorry.
Okay, that'd be useful to come back to the partnership once we get some more details on that.
Yeah, I'll take notes. Maybe that wants to go in the actions. I'm sure it will, because then at least if it is myself or Mr. Starbuck, we can get prompted to ensure the data's included.
Yeah, brilliant. That'd be great. Thank you. Any other questions for Michelle? No, thank you very much for filling in for Mr. Starbucks.
No problem at all.
Okay, on to item 11, victim first, pages 29 to 40. Jasmine.
Hello.
Hi, over to you.
I'll share my screen. I'm going to go through the slides because it's the best way to do it. But you have had the slides before, so I will cover them. But if there are any questions at any point, just shout them out. Because I don't think I'll be able to see if anyone has their hand up. I might be, but honestly, take yourself off mute. That is fine. So yeah, I am from Victim First. I'm Jasmine. I'm currently the partnerships manager. Can you see my slides in slideshow format?
Yep, we can see them fine.
Fabulous, thank you. So yeah, I'm from Victim First. So Victim First is, so if my slides work, there we go, the free, independent and confidential support service for any victims and witnesses of crime and antisocial behaviour across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. So obviously people have to live within LLR. So obviously we support victims, so anyone who's been a direct victim, but also witnesses. So that can be people who have physically witnessed an incident, or it can also include if there's maybe been a particular incident and people might feel impacted because of that. Recently there was the gentleman in Braunston that we've been supporting the community with that. So we'll go out and, you know, meet people in the community, kind of attend support groups just to offer our support as well. And when there has been kind of a bit of a bigger incident that's obviously impacted the community. So none of our service users, they don't have to have reported to the police to be supported by us. Obviously most of them have. We do get a lot of referrals from the police, but they don't have to have reported that to access our support. So we are obviously commissioned by the Police and Crime Commissioner, and Victim First is delivered by a national organisation called Catch 22. Catch 22 has delivered Victim First since 2015, and we've just been recommissioned. We were successful in the recommissioning, and we went live with this new model in April this year. So we had quite a bit of changes in our new structure, which is kind of what I'm going to go through today. So support's free. There's obviously no cost. There's no time limits within the service. So that can be from when the crime happened, could have happened 20, 30 years ago, could have happened 5 minutes ago. It doesn't matter to us. And there's no time limits within the service. So as long as there's needs that we can support with, then we will. There's no limit in terms of, set amount of calls they can have, set amount of sessions they can have. It's just until, we've done everything that we can. And until that kind of comes to an end. So our support is provided over the phone, face to face, so we can go and meet people at their homes if it's safe to do so. We can meet people at schools, at community centres, wherever they feel comfortable as well. But we also do have a web chat service on our website, and we obviously can support people by email as well. We provide support for people of all ages. So we support children, young people and adults. Anybody. And our young people's service is called the Victim First Future. This is new for our new contract. It's like the exact same support, the exact service. It's just rebranded. We did some workshops with young people to kind of gather what they would like, what would make them, want to engage in a service as well. So that's kind of where Victim First Futures came from. We do have a distinct and innovative 18 to 25-year-old service that is new in our new contract. So there's also that as well. And we're open Monday to Saturday between 9 and 6. There we go. So then this is a bit of a structure of our team. So we have a head of service, we have an admin data analyst, we have partnerships manager, restorative justice lead, and a team leader. And then the kind of members of the team who work directly with our service users are the ones in this orange colour. So we have 3 triage caseworkers, 3 specialist caseworkers, and 1 domestic abuse caseworker. The domestic abuse caseworker is separate from our main contract. That's Ministry of Justice funding. So she's with us until March 2025, unless that gets extended, which obviously we're hopeful for, but just waiting to see. And then the purples are our volunteers and student placements. We have some restorative justice volunteers, admin and community engagement volunteers, and some student placements that are with us as well. So they make up quite a bit of our team as well. I will go through the difference between the two kind of different caseworkers when I go through the process. But this is the support that we can provide. So we can provide emotional support, mainly listening to people, seeing how they are, giving them someone to talk to. A lot of our service users do struggle with talking to maybe their friends and family about how they're feeling, because of the impact. They might worry if I say this, how's that going to affect them? How does that impact them? So talking to us is, somebody they don't know, kind of a bit of a stranger really at the start. We have no relationship to them, so they can almost talk a bit freely about how they're feeling. So that's really helpful. We can provide information and advice, so whether that's kind of information on how often the police should be contacting you, kind of anything like that. If we don't know anything, we will Google it with them. We'll try and find the information with them and for them. And yeah, just any information they might need that might be relevant. We might offer that information, they might ask for it, kind of however that happens. We can also signpost to other services or make ongoing referrals. So, we might make a referral to Freeva, kind of signpost to a community coffee morning. We might think would be really useful for them. Kind of anything that we think would be useful, whether we give the service user the information for them to look at themselves, or we get their consent and make the referral. It just depends. We provide some practical support, so we have the personal alarms that people can kind of, I would say, attach to their keys, because you never forget your keys, or if you do, sometimes it's not the best. But you attach to your keys, obviously kind of have on you, if you ever felt unsafe, you'd pull the pin out, makes like that awful car alarm sound, just to help people feel safer. We have some purse bells for, you know, people who are worried about having their purse or wallet stolen, or kind of any other item, they can pop them on. You know, if they were somebody was going in their bag, you'd hear them go off. And we also have some spiking prevention products as well that we can give out. They're a big hit at Freshers at the moment. Yeah, we can also provide some crime prevention advice. So whether that's just information on, you know, how to keep themselves safe, keep their property safe, anything like that. So we can advise around that. We can provide some advocacy as well. So this kind of takes the form in our service as sometimes a letter, sometimes contacting the service directly, you know, just to say, this is the impact, this is what's happened to somebody, this is the impact of that, and kind of this is what we recommend. I've done a few before for schools, so asking for a service user, a young service user, to have like a timeout card, so they can just step out of the class for 5 minutes. Sometimes around, we can provide them to housing associations and councils, so when, you know, maybe there's ongoing antisocial behaviour and, you know, it's really impacting them and they would like to move home, maybe they're already on the waiting list or they're kind of on a band. Obviously we emphasize that, you know, us writing a letter, it might make a difference, but inevitably, you know, there are only so many houses and we can't change the world with it, but sometimes it can just help, you know, provide a bit of a picture about what's been happening and a bit of evidence for them. We also have access to a hardship fund. This is a small pot of money that we can use for our service users. The kind of basis for it is if they have one or more unmet needs. So if we have a service user who for example, I had an elderly gentleman who took his money out of his bank every month, so he had it in cash in his home. His home was burgled and the cash was taken. So he just needed kind of to get through to when he next got access to funds again. So we gave him a food voucher, you know, just to see him through to the end of the month. Obviously, at the same time, kind of signposting to, you know, maybe food banks, you know, community fridges, things like that, because it's not something that people can continuously access. I've used it before for a young person who didn't have any kind of school equipment, so she didn't have like a school bag, like a bottle, and she just kind of really needed that. She was being bullied, so we just, you know, a small amount of money, went and got her some items for school to kind of help her, you know, feel like she fit in and, you know, have access to stuff that she needed, really. So yeah, it's got quite a few creative uses if you're clever about it, but yeah, it's a nice thing to have. So we also offer restorative justice. I'll try and give an explanation, but we have Daniel, our restorative justice lead, who leads on this. So restorative justice is where we would bring together the victim and the offender, or the harmed and the harmer. So it can be used in cases where maybe, you know, it is ongoing neighbour issues and one's not particularly an offender or one's not particularly a harmer. You know, maybe it's a bit of back and forth, but we can bring people together to address the harm that's caused and the impact of that, really. The victim or the harmed might have an opportunity to answer any questions they had. Yeah, and just kind of, you know, speak about what they want to speak about, address any harm, and maybe find a way forward. So we can do this through different ways. So it can either be indirect through letter writing or a shuttle process. So the two parties will kind of pass messages between our facilitator to each other. Or it can be done in a direct way through a face-to-face conference. That's kind of where you'd imagine, you know, you'd have your victim, your offender, the facilitator there, and they'll have that conversation in person. Restorative justice is very risk assessed. You know, we don't just put people in a room together and say, you know, speak about what you want to speak about. There's a lot of process that goes into it. You know, if it went to that conference or when you get to the letter writing, you know what that person's going to say, and you've almost kind of prepped the other person as to how they would respond to that. So yeah, if you whatever point there is contact, we know what's almost going to happen. So yeah, it can happen in them ways, or it could be a combination of all of them. So it might start as a shuttle or a letter, and then maybe, you know, they've had that and they're happy with that, and then they want to progress to a face-to-face conference because they've had a positive experience and there's still things they'd like to get from it. So we also offer that, essentially. So this is our process through the service, really. So like I said, we get most of our referrals from the police. So when the police speak to a victim, they will ask, you know, would you like to be referred to victim first? Would you like to be contacted by us? Victim or witness then says yes. They tick the box, and that automatically comes through to us on a daily download. people can contact us themselves. They can self-refer, so they can give us a call, they can go to our website and fill out the self-referral form, they can drop us an email and access the service that way. And obviously we can get referrals from partners and local organisations as well. So when we get the referral, for anyone also who does work on Sentinel, I'm going to try and explain this the best that I can. If it's a high risk ASB, that will automatically come through to us. The referral that we get from that isn't enough to contact the service user because it's very limited. So what we do is we'll email whoever the lead officer is on that back and just say, can you complete our professional referral form with all the information. So if that covered anyone, then that's what we do with Sentinel. Yeah, so when we get cases, we aim to allocate them out and make contact within 48 hours. We do stick to that most of the time. Obviously, sometimes bank holidays, stuff like that, can put us in a bit of a backlog. But yeah, we mainly aim for the 48 hours. So from the referral, they'll then be contacted by a triage caseworker. The triage caseworker will contact them and say, we're from Victim First, kind of explain a bit about us and just double check that person does want our support. So it might be, would you like our support? Yes, or they might say no, or they might just, have a question that they want answering, a bit of information that they need at that point, and they don't need anything further. So essentially, if at the point of the triage caseworker contacting, if that person says no, they don't need our support, or it is just that bit of information that they need, the triage caseworker will provide that. And obviously, we'll provide that person with our details so they can call us back at any time. The offer is always there. Like I said, there's no time limit. So anybody that does say yes, that they would like ongoing support, they'll then be passed on to a specialist caseworker. And that specialist caseworker will stay the same with us throughout their time with us, so it won't change unless that person leaves, which hopefully it won't. But kind of once they've reached that specialist, that is their dedicated contact within the service. So the specialist caseworker will then do a detailed needs assessment, really checking in on how they are, how things have been impacted since the crime, how things have changed. Obviously from finding out how things have changed and how they're doing, we'll form a support plan. So kind of going back to the support menu, seeing how we can help. The support will be provided, which is this step here, and that support is always reviewed. So we'll always check in and see, has it helped, has it not helped, are there external things happening that we can't control but had that effect. We'll always be checking in about how they feel and seeing how things are doing really, and that process will kind of continue until the client feels that there's no further needs that they have. I'm very sorry if the noise is a bit loud where I am. Essentially until that person feels there's nothing else that we can do, or until we feel we've reached that point where we've done everything, but they might need access to specialist services, and then we'll kind of signpost or refer them on. Mainly it is that the service user feels that we've done everything that we can. So then at that point of when we've taken that step back, we're not providing support anymore because we've done everything. Like I said earlier on, people can always come back. So even if they've been through this whole process, they might give us a call. They might just want a quick, kind of catch up debrief about what's been going on, or they might want to go through the whole process again. That's completely fine as long as there is support that we can offer. Obviously, we'll always be open to that, and they can just give us a call if that's what they need. Then we've just got 2 case studies and then one final slide. So this was a case study from one of my service users. This was a young boy whose family was targeted in the home. So somebody broke into the home and physically attacked his mother. He was only about 8 or 9. At the time of us first coming into contact with him, he was really struggling to sleep, didn't feel safe at home, and didn't feel safe when he was out in his local community because the perpetrator was still kind of out in the community, and he was really worried about his family member. So he wasn't going to school. He was thinking, if I stay at home in the day, if he's not there, mum's by herself, so I'll stay at home and keep her safe. So I visited this young person quite a few times at the school. So we'll go in the middle of, not in the middle of the day, but in the school day and go and see him there. We did some safety planning about how he could get to school safer, how he could, play up with his friends safer. And through that, we kind of identified that he said that if he had his bike, he could get away quicker if he did sort of see the person, and that would make him feel safer. And we're like, okay, well, what's wrong with your bike? And I think what it was is that he needed new inner tubes for his tyres because I think they had a puncture or something. So we used the hardship fund to pay for that. It was, I think, it's about £30 Halford's voucher. Paid for new inner tubes. Halford's fitted them. There was a bit of money left over for his little sister to have some tassels on her bike handles. So we used that. Gave him a personal alarm, so he had obviously the device on him. If he did see this person and feel unsafe, he could pull on it. People would obviously be drawn to his attention. He might feel safer just carrying it. And we did provide him with a worry monster. So we have the worry monster kind of teddies where their mouths have the zip, and they put the worries inside, and if they believe it, the parents or the family member will take the worries out. They'll believe that the worry monster's eaten them. Don't think he quite believed. He was not a believer in the worry monster. So, but he still had it, and it was still a really useful tool for him to be able to write down how he was feeling and obviously share that with his family. And yeah, the outcome was that all his needs were reduced, and he was happy with our support. I think at the time of closure, his family was still engaged with a family support worker. So kind of we'd done everything that we can, and we'd obviously reduced some of the needs that we'd identified. And this was an adult service user. So this service user was experiencing a lot of antisocial behaviour. He lived in some flats that there was lots of antisocial behaviour kind of in the corridors, outside his home. Mainly because the communal door was broken, so people were kind of come in and go as they please, using drugs, things like that. So when we first contacted him, he was really struggling with his mental health, was feeling really lonely, was feeling a lot that people weren't listening to him, and that nobody kind of wanted to hear what he had to say, and he obviously was feeling unsafe at home. So what we did for this case was we contacted the Housing Association or Council, just to say, this is happening, this is the impact it's having on one of your tenants. What we'd recommend is that communal door get fixed, and inevitably it's going to solve a lot of the problems that he's having and maybe some of the other tenants are having. And then that was fixed as a result of that. We provided him some safety advice and information, just how to keep safe. If he did see these people, if it happened again, maybe kind of through having that door fixed, it might displace them outside of the building. So kind of how to keep himself safe with that. And yeah, a lot of emotional support, listening to him, making sure that he felt that he was being listened to and had someone to care, really. So care isn't the right word, but someone to listen. I see that Les has got your hand up. I can see he's got your hand up, so go for it.
Well, it's just a quickie. So, and it's not about stigmatising anybody or anything, but you've mentioned that you had to intervene with a housing provider. And, I'm sure I'm not alone, that I'm not the only councillor who's had to pick up a phone to our ASB officers or a housing association and basically ask them, can you put the basics right, please? And I think, is there an opportunity for us to actually reach out? There's not that many housing providers around Leicester and Leicestershire. Is there an opportunity, because this is an individual who's suffering, and but one of the key fixes was really straightforward and the responsibility of the housing association. So I just wonder, in this whole sort of world that we live in community safety, is there an opportunity for us to knock on the door of the housing associations and just make sure that they understand the implications of them not doing the basics first before we have to write to them? Because reality, we shouldn't be having to write to them. They should be doing these things as a matter of course. So back to you, Chair. Thank you.
I think you're exactly right. I think, like you said, that we didn't really, listening and, providing the emotional support is a big part of what we do. But like you said, if it had just the basics had been sorted, then yeah, it's easy fixes sometimes, isn't it? Did anyone else have the hand up? I can't quite see. I don't know if it was Christine.
Christine has got a hand up.
Yeah. I've got a couple of questions. You mentioned working with an 8-year-old. How young can the children be that you work with? I'm thinking some very young children have ACE events in their life before they even arrive at school. And can you work with school and nursery staff to better support that person that might be the first time that they've had a child arriving with that sort of trauma in their life?
Yeah, so we're commissioned to support all ages. So we are commissioned from zero. The way that we interpret that as a service is we'll work directly with any young person from the age of 4 upwards. Obviously, it's very, play based, obviously applied to their age and their development. But anyone 4 upwards, we would work directly with. Anyone under 4, obviously the very young, we'd offer that support to the parents to kind of say, this is maybe what might help, how can we support you in this? But yeah, I think, like I said, working with the nurseries and stuff is maybe something that we could tap into, kind of make sure that, professionals in all like education settings are kind of able to maybe acknowledge things and kind of support them, because they're the people that are interacting with everyone on a daily basis, really.
I think that's right. And I think sometimes they try to do what they think is the best in the situation. They recognise they have a victim, but maybe don't have the skills to do it. So I think there is a role there. My second one was slightly different. It was linked to the restorative justice.
Yes.
And you sometimes get a neighbour dispute that festers.
Yeah.
And slowly gets, how old can the incident be when they come and say, do you know, this has got to the stage where I'm now feeling victimised by my neighbour?
I think as long as they still feel that way, I know exactly what you mean. Neighbour issues sometimes start out as one thing, maybe someone moving the bin, and then it's something else. It grows, doesn't it? It snowballs, or it, like you say, it might just be the one incident, but it festers and people can't, maybe because they haven't had the opportunity to say what they maybe want to say, or, and it kind of spirals, doesn't it? So yeah, I'd say no limits from when it happened for the restorative justice as well, just as long as restorative justice is a voluntary process between both parties, so they both have to want to engage. No limit, as long as they both still feel impacted and want to engage in that. With the restorative justice, if you did make a referral for that, there's a separate form where it has like information for both parties, so it could be both neighbours. But if at that point you've only spoke to one of them, and the referral really is for them to find out a little bit more. So, obviously Daniel would speak to them and have a chat with them about it. And then we could obviously go through the process of, making contact with the other party and offering them the same service. So yeah, any like that, like I say, I think neighbours is a really untapped resource for restorative justice. It can be used really positively. I think we had one recently where a neighbour had gone to the door of their other neighbour with their dog, and then the neighbour whose home it was opened the door and the lady fell backwards. So like, it wasn't a crime, it's not a crime, it's an incident, but the restorative justice was, okay, let's have some communication. I think they agreed on, we're not going to talk to each other for the near future, let's just keep our distance, and I'm sorry for what happened, and let's move on. So kind of it can be used in that way, very productively, really.
Thank you.
Gurjit's got a hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of comments on some of the questions, really. Thanks, Jasmine. That was a really insightful presentation. In terms of the housing associations, we have done as a partnership a lot of work in the past, particularly around antisocial behaviour. And I do think that the procurement of a new system will be an opportunity when we start looking at the training of the new system to retrain our housing association partners on antisocial behaviour and supporting victims, etc. So we shall do that. Also, in terms of neighbour nuisance cases, Melton Borough Council actually came to the ASB strategy group with a proposal. So they have trained 8 of their council staff in becoming mediators. So we're just looking at how that can support the partnership, not taking away anything from Victim First, but just across the ASB partnership, there's another resource there that we can use across the county and potentially Rutland, if Rutland are interested. But just thought I'd highlight those 2 as well.
That sounds really good. I wonder if the mediators are something that we can link in with our restorative justice. Obviously, I know mediation and restorative justice, it's lost me on the moment and what's different about them. But it might be something that we can kind of work together on. So if anyone wanted to send anything over, or I'm happy for my email to be shared if anyone had any questions or anything that they wanted to link in with afterwards. I think my final slide is just I think what two is just about, obviously we do have community engagement, so we aim to be out in the community, raising presence on the service and being there for the communities when they need us. So just kind of a point to say, if anybody does have any kind of events coming up that you think it would be useful to have Victim First input in, just drop me an email and I can see if obviously we're available and get that arranged. And then the final slide I think is just a cover of how to contact us. So yeah, obviously we've got a phone number, we've got an email address, and through the website we've got the referral forms. I'll just quickly show you where they are so you're all aware. So obviously this is our website. There's lots of information here about how we can help, crime types, obviously more about restorative justice. But if you've wanted to contact us and fill out our forms, contact details are here, and then here are the forms. So if somebody wanted to refer themselves, it'd be this one. If you guys are referring anyone, it will be the professional referral. And then if it is a restorative justice referral, like I said, there's this one here, where there is space for both parties' details, but it's not required that you have both at that time. So yeah, that was it from me. I hope that was good. If anyone had any questions, I'm able to answer them.
Thanks, Jasmine. That was really useful. And I have visited you before under the old contract and met the team and stuff. So yeah, no, it's definitely worth a visit. I think the police and crime panel are going to come and visit you again fairly soon. Have you moved location now? Because you were in the force headquarters.
No, we're still at the same one in the corner.
Yeah,
I think I remember when you came last year. Actually,
yeah.
Now that you've said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I'd seen that.
You get us a free bag of goodies. That's why you remember. Yeah.
We just give everyone free bags of goodies.
Yeah,
that leaves us a good lasting impression.
Yeah, but I'm really pleased to see the young people, because I know I spoke to one of your workers there that deals with the young people and the worry monsters and stuff like that. So it's good that you've identified that there is a need there for the younger people as well, and you've actually got a specific service for them rather than it just being all lumped together, because it can be a bit scary for them, can't it, for the younger ones. So that's good to see that. So yeah, I think we are going to come and visit you again very soon. So yeah, I look forward to that.
So I'll see you then.
Yes. But any other questions for Jasmine on this? No. And I was just going to pick up Les, but Gurjit's done it about the registered providers. I suppose for each of our CSPs as well, their planning departments at the districts and stuff have probably got more details on who are the registered providers, because there's so many, aren't there, within each locality. But if we can pick that up across the board, but also localities can do that through their own community safeties teams as well, about a reminder of, I mean, it's not just registered providers. Some of the council properties we know have got, broken stuff that takes us ages to get repaired. So I think it's across the board, to be honest, as well. Okay, thank you for that. Did you want to say something, Les?
Yeah, just sort of follow on to what you just said there for me, Deb. So, there's one really big housing provider that we use in my patch. I'm sure many others do, who have their own in-house ASB team. Some of the other providers do not have an in-house ASB team, and therefore there's this weird separation that as a district authority, our ASB officers can't get involved with ASB in a housing association unless they're invited in to come and help. So I think there's a bit within the whole system and the mechanism that's kind of missing, because if they don't have ASB officers and we can't intervene without being asked to intervene, there's like this really big hole in the middle that we don't seem to be able to penetrate. So I think there's a conversation there to have at some point, Deb, somewhere